Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Hare Krishna. Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. जय ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, शील प्रभुपाद की जय, समवेद गौर भक्त वृंद की जय, भुवन मंगल श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय, निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल. Today we're going to be reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, Chapter 4, verse number 14. Sri Rajovacha, Sri Rajovacha, Bhagavan Shrotum Ichchami, Bhagavan Shrotum Ichchami, Rajarshestasya Dhimatah, Rajarshestasya Dhimatah, Na Prabhudyatra Nirmukto, Na Prabhudyatra Nirmukto, Brahmadhando Duratyayah, Brahmadhando Duratyayah. Sri Rajovacha, Bhagavan Shrotumicchami, Rajarshestasya Dhimatah, Na Prabhudyatra Nirmukto, Brahmadhando Duratyayah. Sri Rajovacha, Bhagavan Shrotumicchami, Rajarshestasya Dhimatah, न प्राबुद्यत्र निर्मुक्तो ब्रह्मदण्डो दुरत्ययः। श्रीराजोवाच भगवन् श्रोतुमिच्छामि राजर्षेस्तस्य धीमतः। न प्राबुद्यत्र निर्मुक्तो ब्रह्मदण्डो दुरत्ययः। माताजी। श्रीराजोवाच भगवन् श्रोतुमिच्छामि राजर्षेस्तस्य धीमतः। न प्राबुद्यत्र निर्मुक्तो ब्रह्मदण्डो दुरत्ययः। श्रीराजोवाच भगवन् श्रोतुमिच्छामि word to word translations. Translation purports by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Srila Prabhupada Bhaktivedanta purports Ki Jai. Sri Raja Uvacha. King Parikshit inquired, Bhagavan, O great Brahmana, Shrotum Ichchami, I wish to hear from you. Rajarshehe, of the great King Ambarisha. Tasya, of him. Dhimataha, who was such a greatly sober personality. Na, not. Prabhut, could act. Yatra, upon whom, Maharaj Ambarisha. Nirmuktaha, being released. Brahma Dandaha, the curse of a Brahmana. Duratyayaha, which is insurmountable. Translation. You can repeat after me. King Parikshit inquired, O great personality, Maharaj Ambarisha was certainly most exalted and meritorious in character. I wish to hear about him. How surprising it is that the curse of a Brahmana, which is insurmountable, could not act upon him. Hari Om Tat Sat. King Parikshit inquired, O great personality, Maharaj Ambarisha was certainly most exalted and meritorious in character. I wish to hear about him. How surprising it is that the curse of a Brahmana, which is unsurmountable, could not act upon him. Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitangen tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitang Ena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadhati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yudapadakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vidantang Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakan Vedamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dhinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhu Evacha Patitanang Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namaom Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunnavadi Paschata Deshatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara, Shri Vasadi Shri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Mukhaṁ karoti vācālaṁ pangung langayate giring yat kripātamaham vande Sri Gurun Dīnataranam Paramananda Madhavam Sri Chaitanyameshwaram. Harihi Om Tat Sat. First of all, I would like to thank Govinda Priya Mataji for giving me this opportunity to be here, being of service. I seek blessings from such wonderful devotees, His Grace Rupanuga Prabhu, and many other wonderful devotees and teachers of Srimad Bhagavatam here. I feel greatly humbled to be here doing this service so I can be an instrument in speaking Srimad Bhagavatam. And with your blessings, I hope to be a better instrument here. So today, the topic that I've chosen had to go through a lot of iteration before I could arrive at this after hearing His Grace Gauranga Darshan Prabhu. I was struggling to find what topic should I talk on because he pretty much covered everything in yesterday's session, the entirety of Srimad Bhagavatam from beginning till end. So what is that he might not have covered so I should look at? Or perhaps look at something a little bit more deeper. So here it is, the verse that chosen here from the 9th canto, 4th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which describes this wonderful pastime of Maharaj Ambarisha. So King Parikshit is inquiring here, oh great personality, is addressing Sukadeva Goswami. Maharaj Ambarisha was certainly most exalted, meritorious in character. I wish to hear about him. And just before he invokes this question, we can see that in the previous verses, the Falashruti of this particular chapter is given that anybody who simply gives audience to this wonderful topic of Ambarish Maharaj simply becomes auspicious and blessed with all these characters endowed upon this great, wonderful devotee. And so he says, how surprising it is that the curse of a Brahmana. So when he meant about being exalted and meritorious, how meritorious was he? Here, Parikshit Maharaj describes saying that it is surprising that the curse of a Brahmana, which is insurmountable, could not act upon him. It is considered that the curse of a Brahmana is the most dreaded one, that nobody can just get out of it, including Parikshit Maharaj himself, who is speaking here. And so he is asking this question as to how is that, and such a great personality as Durvasa Muni, and his curse, and it did not act on Maharaj Ambarish. So let's dive a little bit deep into some of the verses that follow, which describe as to what was that wonderful character, the merit of Ambarish Maharaj that saved him from the curse of this great Brahmana. In the next verses 15 and 16, Sri Sukha Vacha, Ambarisho Mahabhagaha Shapta Dvipavatim Mahim. So he says, this great personality, Ambarish Maharaj, he was not an ordinary personality. He inherited the entire universe. He says, Sappa Dvipavatim Mahim. And he said, Shriyam Labdva, which means he had inherited great wealth, Vibhavam Chatulam Bhuvi, which means he had great opulence throughout the entire place that he was handed over to. And then he says, and these are not very easy for any ordinary personality to get. He said, Ati Dhurlabam Pungsham. It's very difficult for an ordinary personality to inherit or manage such a great opulence and wealth. And he's going to tell the reason as to why is it difficult. It is very easy to inherit something, but it is very difficult to manage something as great as that. And so he says, Ati Dhurlabam Pungsham. So here, Srila Prabhupada describes in the translation saying, achieved the rule of the entire world consisting of 7 islands and achieved inexhaustible, unlimited opulence and prosperity on earth. However, even though he had such a position which is rarely obtained, Maharaj Ambarisha did not care for it at all. And this he describes as one of the greatest qualities of Ambarisha. Ambarisha was very young when he inherited, all these wealths and opulences from his father. And we all know the story of how he inherited, because his father, he had gone to the Gurukula, and before he could return, all his brothers had already distributed the wealth of his grandfather. And there was nothing left over for his father, Nabasa. And so he went to his father, Nabasa, and then he asked him as to, what do I do now and what is my share? And his father says that it is just me that they have given you, and that is not very fair for you. And so what should I do? So he said, there is a great sacrifice going on, and you should be participating in the sacrifice. And you will be blessed with the opulences that will come out of the sacrifice. And finally, he gets these opulences from those great personalities. But there is also another personality who comes and claims, saying that this is not your share, this should be my share. And then, of course, finally, it goes to, again, to Nabasa's father, Nabasa. And then he confirms, saying that indeed, this is a share that was actually belonging to Lord Shiva. So you should go and ask Lord Shiva. And of course, the long story short, that he goes to Lord Shiva and he pleases Lord Shiva. And finally, Lord Shiva hands over the entire wealth and the opulence that was part of this entire sacrifice back to Nabasa. And that is the one that was handed over to Maharaj Ambarish. So this was not just an ordinary thing, because it was the wealth of everything that even the great demigods and great personalities like Lord Shiva had. So it was not an ordinary thing for him to manage. But despite getting such a rarely obtained position, he was completely detached from it. Or it is said here that he did not care for it at all. Now, this is very interesting, because what we're going to see in the next couple of verses is, Maharaj Ambarisha was a great devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vasudeva and of the saintly persons who are the Lord's devotee. Because of his devotion, he thought of the entire universe as being insignificant as a piece of stone. So the beautiful word that is used here is lostravat smrutam. He just considered this just like a piece of stone. So how was he able to get this detachment from all the wealths that he inherited? That is, here it says, prapto bhavam. Because of just being tat bhakteshu cha sadhushu prapto bhavam. Just for being in devotion, he was able to consider this just as a piece of stone. So this was one of his quality, which is being completely detached. Now the question really is, how did he develop this detachment? And that is described in this very famous and next set of verses, which is the verses 18 to 20. Savai manah Krishna padara vindayoho, vachamsi vaikunta gunanu varnane, karau harer mandira marjanadishu, shrutim cha karachuta satkatodaye. So in these verses, it's described that he engaged every one of his senses in simply satisfying the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And when one engages all his senses in devotional service, in various engagements related to the Lord, Srila Prabhupada concludes in the purport here by saying, this is the way to increase attachment to the Lord. And so there he gives an indication saying that in the previous verse, he talks about the detachment that he had from all the wealths and the opulences. That detachment was possible because of his attachment with the Supreme Lord. So what we understand here is that when we develop more and more our attachment towards the Lord, automatically the one which is the Viparya Yoho, the one that is opposite to it, we start to slowly become detached from it. We see that in this beautiful verse, Bhakti Paresha Anubhava 11.2 on 42, it talks about Bhakti Para Isha Anubhava, that is devotion, the experience of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the Anubhava, the experience that one gets out of it, follows Virakti, that is detachment. So the real way to become detached from things that we inherit or the ones that we are supposed to, maintain, is to develop a sense of detachment. On the other day, we were hearing from our dear Madan Mohan Prabhu. He was describing about this wonderful pastime of Swayambhuva Manu and Priyavrata. So we see that as to how, when he was handed over the reign, he was completely not interested in it. In fact, to the extent that he said, no, this is going to be a hindrance in my devotional service. I want to keep it away from myself, is what he said. So when one enters into a particular responsibility of leadership or a great position with a sense of detachment, and how should that detachment come? It should not be some kind of a false detachment. Prapanchikataya buddhya hari sambandhi vastunaha mumukshubhi parityago falgu vairagyam katyate. Rupa Goswami says that the detachment that should arise of things that has come to you should not be because of false renunciation. So how will one develop real renunciation? He says the way to develop real renunciation is to simply engage everything. Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Bhakti Ruchate. That one has to engage in Yukta Vairagya. So that if whatever he has, if he simply engages in the service and the pleasure of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then the same things that we are dealing with, even though we are engaged in it, we become detached from it. And that is beautifully described in the next set of verses we see here. Which is the Evam Sada Karma Kalapam Atmanaha. In this we say that in performing his prescribed duties as king, Maharaj Ambarisha always offered the results of his royal activities to the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, who is the enjoyer of everything. Then it describes here, he certainly took advice from Brahmanas who were faithful devotees of the Lord. So we see here two things. Initially, it says that he didn't care for it at all. And then here, it describes about how he used his royalties and the wealth that he had to carry out the various activities that we want. So it looks like a little bit contradictory that, oh, he had everything and he did not care for it at all. That is what we, if you literally look at it, but then he was actually engaging all of them in the activities. So did he really become detached, or what was he actually doing? Right? And when he was doing that, it is also describing here another beautiful quality of Ambarisha. It says that he certainly took advice from the Brahmanas who were faithful devotees of the Lord. This is another quality of a leader. A leader, whenever he performs, regardless of whatever position that he is in, and here he is the ruler of the entire world, he always takes advice, consultation from the great learned Brahmanas. And here, very interestingly, Srila Prabhupada translates the word Brahmana as saying faithful devotees of the Lord. So what he really means is that the Brahmanas that he is consulting is the Brahmanas who had this great devotion, which means a Vaishnava Brahmana is who he is consulting. Why? Because there is a difference that if one consults a Vaishnava Brahmana, he knows what's the ultimate goal and where he has to lead to. So, in whatever activities, we see the subject matter of Shukracharya, who's also guiding. But the difference here is that the guidance should be for the ultimate principle. What is the ultimate principle? Prahlad Maharaj says, Nate viduhu swartagatim hi vishnum durasaya bahirattamanina. That this person who is guiding should not be interested in the bahirartha, which means the things that are away from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Swartagatim hi Vishnum. He should understand that the ultimate destination is Vishnu. But these people do not know. Nate viduhu. And if one simply follows them, andha yathandaihi upaniyamanaste api ishatantriyam urudhamni badya. It says that if simply one follows these people who do not themselves know the destination, then we are also going to be guided in a different direction, which is not the ultimate destination. And what happens as a result of it? Urudhamni badya. We simply become bound in this material world, which means we become more and more attached to the material things rather than having to actually engage them in Krishna service. So it is important that one takes advice or consultation from great devotees. Why they could do that? Because they have clear understanding. Nate viduhu. So the key word there is vidu. That one has to know. What should they know? They should understand that Krishna says, Bhoktaram Jagatapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, that he is the ultimate enjoyer of everything. And not just he is an enjoyer independently, but he is doing that in good relationship with everyone. Suhrudang Sarva Bhutanam. He is in good relationship with all the entities. And Gyatva, one who knows this, Shanting Rikshati. He says that. This is Srila Prabhupada calls the peace formula. That if one wants to exist in this world, instead of simply having to reject it, Falgu, which means this Jagat is Mithya, if you simply accept it and engage it in Krishna's service, understanding that he is the ultimate enjoyer, and he is our friend, he who is always working as a well-wisher, then that is the peace formula. You can exist peacefully in whatever activities we perform. Whether we are a leader or we are a follower, it doesn't matter. The understanding that is required is to simply understand that. So the quality that we see here is the quality where he was always ready to take consultation from learned people. And he did not have the ego that, oh, I am the Lord of this entire world and I can take decisions on my own. And that is an important quality that we see of a leader. Moving on to the next one, the verse number 22. The next interesting quality comes up here. It says here, he performed in desert countries where they followed the river of Saraswati. Maharaj Ambrisha performed great sacrifices like the Ashwamedha Yajna and thus satisfied the master of all yajnas. Now he was the ruler of the entire world. He had to please all his citizens. While he was doing that by performance of various sacrifices, he paid very special attention to certain sections of his society who were actually deprived. And so here it mentions saying that in desert countries where there was difficulty, he performed special yajnas so that he could help. And this is a very important quality of a leader. A leader, while managing his citizens or his followers, he should see that he makes a good balance of how he manages with his people. There are some of them who are already well enabled, well experienced, well skilled, but there are some other areas where they might not be as much skilled or they might not be getting the results that they are expected to, or results in the sense, when we talk about in a material sense, but here in the direction of wanting to move towards the Supreme Lord, one might be lagging behind. And it is important for the leader to always stay behind and take them by the hand to see that they're also walking along and they will be in the same pace as, where he wanted to take them to. So here is a very important, quality of Ambarish Maharaj that we see here as to, he was not just encouraging the great performers and leaving alone the other ones who were a little bit slow. So he was focusing on both. And in this way, he was always merciful and he never cared for himself. So now going back to the first verse where we see that he did not care for it at all. Srila Prabhupada explains that when it says that he did not care for it at all, it means that he did not consider that for his own benefit or enjoyment, and in that sense he did not care for it. But he did take good care of it in terms of trying to utilize it for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord while serving his citizen. In that sense, he was merciful and engaged in service in serving the citizens. And so that is an important quality of a leader. A leader is always focused towards what is the ultimate goal, what is the ultimate vision. Going back again to the Prahlad Maharaj's verse, it says that Andha yathandaihi upaniyamanas, that they are blind. What are they blind to? They're blind to the vision. In any leadership, what is important to have a vision? We have the ALPs where we have the mission and vision statement that precedes everything else, right? It is important that we need to first, as a leader, understand what is the vision, what is the ultimate destination where we want to go. If we do not ourselves understand, then how are we going to communicate that to everyone that is going to follow? And here it is explained that what motivates the followers is the vision, the ability of the leader. On the other day, in one of our sessions, we were hearing what is the difference between a leader and a follower. A leader is someone who is able to understand and see the destination before it happens. We see in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks about Tattva Darshinaha. Why do we take guidance from a spiritual master? He says that, what's the beginning of the verse? Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshantite jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshinaha. He says we take guidance from a spiritual master because he is tattvadarshina. He has already seen the truth, which means he has an experience of the truth, or he knows, or he is able to visualize the truth. And that is an important quality of a leader. A leader should be able to, if not in such a high position to have already seen the truth, he should at least be able to visualize the truth by following another leader. Mahajana Sena Gata Supanta. There are leaders who have already seen the ultimate goal, and if we cannot directly see it, at least follow in their direction so that we will be able to visualize it from their vision or from their point of view. So it is very, very important that a leader should be able to visualize that. And more than just visualizing it, he should be able to give that direction to his followers. Upadekshantite jnanam. They just don't keep it to, they visualize it and they are not just staying there. Oh, I'm able to see the destination, but are you able to communicate that to your well-wishers or your followers? That is important. And so he was able to do that very well. Next, Srila Prabhupada writes in his purport, when one performs ritualistic sacrifices as prescribed in the Vedas, one needs expert brahmanas known as Yajnika brahmanas. And therefore, in Kali Yuga, the sacrifice recommended in Shastra is Sankirtana Yajna. While he himself performed great sacrificial ceremonies such as the Ashwamedha Yajna, as described here in the desert regions and so on, he also ensured that he engaged everyone in Sankirtana. And this was very important. Why? Because there is only a certain section of people who can be engaged in these great sacrifices. But he wanted to ensure, he wanted to engage everyone in Yajna, and the best way to engage them is through the process of Sankirtana Yajna. And incidentally, this was done in the desert. And just tomorrow, in the so-called desert of our Damodar Desh, Dubai, we have a great Sankirtan Yajna going on. You know, we're going to have 36 hours of Kirtan that is going to begin as Kirtan Mela starting tomorrow for the next 3 days. So the best way in this Yuga is to perform Sankirtan Yajna, and by simply performance of the Sankirtan Yajna, we don't have to be worried about having the best of the brahmanas and the best of the ingredients for us to perform such great. And so we also see here in the next verse 24, he says, the citizens of the state of Maharaj Ambarisha were accustomed to, he says, they were accustomed, which means it was in their practice. It was not just an occasional Kirtan Mela, but they were accustomed to chanting and hearing about the glorious activities of the personality of Godhead. So this is another wonderful quality of a leader, that while he was, as a leader, engaging in the performance of the yajna for the welfare of his citizens or followers, he also ensured that he engaged them and ensured that it becomes a custom within themselves, which is very, very important. Thus, they never aspired to be elevated to the heavenly planets. And this is another important and interesting guna that comes out of this particular episode, that by imbibing this custom of making them chant and hear, not only as a leader he was very detached, but he also made his citizens become detached from what they were doing. And that is important. Because sometimes as a leader, you are at a very great position and you're trying to explain a lot of things to your followers, but unless they have the right frame of mind to receive it. You know, we talked yesterday about the giver and the receiver, both of them should be in the right consciousness if they have to align to the highest vision. And so this brings out this wonderful quality of a leader where uh, even the citizens never aspired to be elevated to the heavenly planets, which means they were not interested in material things. They were engaged in the ultimate goal. So what it means, we see Ambarish Maharaj, who's focused in devotion, his citizens who are also focused in chanting and hearing and not interested in anything material, which means they are also aligned to the ultimate goal of the leader. So this alignment of the followers and leaders together towards the ultimate goal becomes a very important aspect of this journey of where we want to, attain that destination. So in this way, he was always interested in the welfare of his citizens. In the next verse, there is a very important thing. How was he able to do all of these things in a very well coordinated way? And this interesting verse, which actually I wanted to have it as the key verse because it describes as to how Ambarish Maharaj was very, very absorbed. Let's try to repeat this verse. Samvardayanti yat kama, samvardayanti yat kama, Swarajya paribhavitaha, Swarajya paribhavitaha, Durlabhanapi siddhanam, Mukundang hridi pashyataha, Mukundang hridi pashyataha. Ambarish Maharaj, it is described in this verse that Sukadeva Goswami beautifully describes, saying that how was he being able to be so focused, whether it comes to how he inherited his kingdom or his activities or in the way that he was going to guide his followers or citizens, how was he be able to always be focused? Srila Prabhupada says, Mukundang hridi pashyataha. In his heart, he was always focused on Mukunda, or he was always, it says, those who are saturated with the transcendental happiness of rendering service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead are uninterested even in the achievements of great mystics. And he always thinks of Krishna within the core of his heart. So Krishna speaks about, in whatever activity mam anusmara yuddhacha. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna advises to Arjuna that it is important that in whatever activity that one performs, it is important to carry Krishna within the core of our heart. And that was one of the most important qualities of a devotee. We see that Srimad Bhagavatam describes, Yashyasti bhakti bhagavati akinchana sarvaihi gunaihi tatra samasate suraha harau abhaktasya kuto mahatgunaha manorathena asati dhavato bahihi, he says. Yashyasti, he has. What does he have? He has bhakti. To whom does he have bhakti to? He says, Yashyasti bhakti bhagavati, unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. What kind of bhakti does he have? He has bhakti that is akinchana, niskinchana bhakti he has. Undeviated, completely focused on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And for that kind of personality, he says, Sarvaihi Gunahi. He automatically endows within himself all the wonderful qualities of Suraha, which means the devotees. So all these qualities that are being wonderfully described in these verses of the Srimad Bhagavatam as described by Sri Sukadeva Goswami, on the inquiry of Parikshit Maharaj, we see these qualities are all there. Do we need to make a plan to say that, okay, let me develop these quality 1, quality 2, quality 3, and have an agenda as to how we want to? Well, there are skills, there are qualities, there are skills which can help us to develop some qualities. But the ultimate way is being shown here by Srimad Bhagavatam, that if it simply gets this attachment to perform devotional service, Savai Manaha Krishna Padara Vindayoho, that if simply one focuses his mind completely on the lotus feet of Krishna, then what happens is automatically all of these gunas, all of these qualities come upon him. However, no matter if one has all the skill and the training to develop these qualities, and if he is not a devotee of Krishna, Harava Bhaktasya, Kuto mahat gunaha. He might so-called exhibit such great, and I was listening to one of the in my earlier days, His Holiness Gaur Govind Maharaj's description of this particular verse. He very beautifully describes the last sentence by saying, "Manoratena asati dhavato bahihi." He says, "Manorathena," which we understand that our mind is, traveling in its own direction. And he describes that beautiful word asati. Sati means one who's chaste. Asati means one who's unchaste. And then he describes by saying that who's unchaste, a society girl or a prostitute, what does she do? She stands on the side of the road, looking at every man that passes, thinking that could this be the person who's going to be the one who's going to provide me for today? Manoratena, her mind is going from one person to the other person, one person to the other person, one person to the other person, thinking, could this be the person who can give me the whatever that I need for today in terms of the provision, right? And she's constantly looking for it. And that is the case of the living entity who's looking for happiness. He's trying to look at, if this is something that can give me happiness, if that is something that can give me happiness, and constantly looks for happiness externally, he says, bahihi. But that is not there outside. The happiness is actually there right inside you. And if we are able to identify that by Savai Manahat Krishna Padara Vindayoho, then we will be able to identify that we need not have to go everywhere to find the peace and happiness that we are looking for. So this quality that we see as the fifth quality that is being described here as all good qualities, by simply performing devotional service, one can get it. And then next verse, 26, the king of this planet, Maharaj Ambarisha, thus performed devotional service to the Lord, and in this endeavor practiced severe austerity, always satisfying the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By his constitutional duties, he gradually gave up all material desires. Another key point here is that always satisfying the Supreme. He was focused there. But at the same time, when he was always satisfying the Supreme, he was just not idle as a king. He was also performing his duty as a king. So it says here, by his constitutional duties, and he gradually gave up all material desires. And when he did so, and Srila Prabhupada mentions here, therefore, although Maharaj Ambarisha was fully engaged in devotional service, his kingdom was free of all fear of adversity. And we see this wonderful description in the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam, 2nd chapter. Bhayam dvitiya abhiniveshatah syat ishad apetasya viparyayoho. So when in this viparyayo asmritihi, if you compare it with the description where Srila Prabhupada talks about his kingdom was free of all fear of adversity. Going back to that verse of the 11th canto, it describes about what is the nature of existence in this material world. The nature of existence in this material world is personified by bhaya. It says, the moment we make our existence in this material world, which means when we get a body, the first thing that comes to us is bhaya. And why is that so? He says, dvitiya abhiniveshatah svyat. It comes because of the duality of this place. There is, and also, assuming something which is isad apetasya viparyayoho, that we have assumed a nature which is away from our original nature, which is not our swabhava. So, because of assuming a nature which is not our original nature, and in that nature there is always duality, and because having to go through this duality, the result of that is bhaya. But here the citizens are being described as being free of all fear of adversity. How is that possible? They are here in this material world. Is it possible that one can be without fear? Because material existence means fear. And so Srila Prabhupada describes that it is indeed possible that we can be in this material world but still be free of all fear of adversity. And that is possible through the process of devotion. And so he establishes here saying that devotion is the only way by which one can live in harmony in this material world in whatever that we want to perform. And just to conclude, this is very beautifully exemplified by Prahlad Maharaj, that Lord Nrsingadeva, after everything was over, he said, Prahlad, you have had enough here. So why don't you just come back to me? Let's go back to our place. You don't have to be here. And Prahlad Maharaj is responding to Lord Nrsingadev, no, my dear Lord, I don't want to come with you. It's pretty strange, right? If the Supreme Lord is coming and he's asking for you to, and our Guru Maharaj comes and says, come, let's go. No, my Guru Maharaj, I don't want to be coming. Like that, here Prahlad Maharaj says, Naivodvije dhuratyaya vaitaranya. Twadvirya ghayana mahamrita magna chitta soche tato vimuka chetasaha indriyartan maya sukhaya bharam udbahato vimudhan, he says. Naeva udvije, he says, I am not at all, I am certainly not agitated. Na eva udvije, he says in the first line, I am certainly not agitated. E para. Even though I am in a situation which is duratteya vaitaranyaha. I am in a situation which is not a very comfortable situation. I'm in a place which is not the best of the places. It's like the Vaitarani. But I am completely calm and composed and I am happy here. And why is that so? He describes in the next line. Twadvirya ghayana. I'm always glorifying your glories. I'm always engaged in glorifying your Lord, your Lordship there. Twadvirya ghayana. And what is that? He says, Maha Amrita. It is nectarian when I describe your glories. Magna Chitta. My Chitta is always completely immersed in that wonderful glories, nectarian glories of your holy name. And so, na eva udvije. I'm not at all agitated. And then he says, Soche tato. But sometimes I lament. Now it looks contradictory. He says, na eva. He said, certainly not agitated. But then how can you add, but sometimes I'm agitated? It's not possible. He says, Soche tato. Vimukha chetasaka. So for myself, I am not agitated. Vimukha chetasaka. When I look at these people who have turned their faces away from you, for them, I become agitated. And that is the wonderful nature. So the leader always lives his life not for himself. He always lives for the others. Paraduko dukhi. Even though he has the eligibility to go with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he did not choose to go with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, where Nrsingadev is asking him, please come along with me. No, I do not want to come. Why? Because I have the order of my spiritual master. I have had the opportunity of receiving from my Gurudev, Srila Narada Muni, and I want to give this to everyone. That is my duty, and that is the order that he has given. I do not want to skip away from that and take the luxury of traveling with Nrsingadev. So he says, Vimukha chetasaha indriyartan maya sukhaya. These people have turned their faces. And why did they turn their face? Because maya sukhaya. They are enjoying this so-called happiness, but they do not understand that this is illusion. And if you ask them why you so busily engaged with it, they say, Bharam udvahatu. I'm carrying a lot of responsibilities. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And I'm so busy. I do not have time for this. And to catch those people, I want to be here, oh my dear Lord. So the responsibility of the leader is that there are many other wonderful qualities that go all the way up to when Durvasa Muni comes. I know we all know many of these things that have been discussed in the previous classes also about this wonderful episode with Durvasa Muni. With the time in mind, I just want to quickly summarize here as to the qualities that we have seen here. So we see the first one is when he inherited this wonderful opulence from his father, he had a sense of detachment. And he always consulted with the Brahmanas so that he could take good guidance. And he used that guidance to be merciful and focused on his people. And all of this was possible because he was focused on one thing, that is in his devotion. And we also see during the episode, the specific episode of when Durvasa Muni comes there, before he could actually break his fast, he consulted the Brahmanas. So there also we see that same good nature coming out of Ambarish Maharaj. And then finally, we see that in all of these things, there is this beautiful description there, which talks about how, O best of the Kuru dynasty, after he drank some water, King Ambarisha, meditating upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead within his heart, waited for the return of the great mystic Durvasa Muni. He did everything. He broke his fast, but he knew the nature of Durvasa Muni, but he did not assume that nature. Anything could happen when Durvasa Muni comes, and he was prepared for it. And how was he prepared for it? He was prepared by meditating upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And this is a very important and pertinent lesson for all of us, that in our own abilities, understanding, and maturity, we might be performing many, many services and we might be doing things. But ultimately, everything cannot come under our control. And when things go out of our control and we see we can never get a control of that control, then we simply have to be dependent on the Supreme Lord, being completely absorbed in Him. And that is exactly what Ambarish Maharaj did. When he did not know what was going to happen, he did not just worry about it. He simply depended and meditated on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, I'm just quoting Gauranga Darshan Prabhu's yesterday's thing, which still sticks in my head. When there is complete absorption in service, and that is driven by devotion, we don't feel exhaustion. So, if we can take these wonderful qualities of Ambarish Maharaj and completely be absorbed in devotion, meditatively and actively, and that's why Srila Prabhupada says two important things. There is motion and there is action. That is also what Prabhu was describing yesterday. There is emotion, which is the devotional aspect of it, and there is service. And so Srila Prabhupada said, devotional service. He translated bhakti as devotional service. So there is both emotion and there is action. And when that two of them are there and with the right mood, then we will never feel exhausted in our services, either as a leader or as a follower. Harihi Om Tat Sat. Jai Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Kodi Vaishnava Vranda ki jai.
Thank you so much, Hari Gopal Prabhu, for your wonderful analysis of Ambrish Maharaj's qualities and how the citizens are very satisfied under his rule. It's a brilliant description. I don't have anything to add. I don't have throat also to add because Rupanuga Prabhu asked me to speak something. I just took it. So I only can thank you for your brilliant, humble presentation. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you.
Thank you, Hari Gopal Prabhu. As Gauranga Darshan Prabhu said, brilliant and very comprehensive coverage of this whole incident. And, we generally hear the tyranny of or. It's not either or. You are very beautifully able to tell us that it is and. Good leadership based on, steeped in sincere devotion. So you tied these two very beautifully. And I want to underscore this point that you made, and you also emphasized it, the point that whatever a leader does, he wants his followers also to come up to the same standard. And the action learning project that we do in the methodology that we have, Teach to Learn, is that whatever you are learning, you are teaching it to your team, and through that teaching, you are further learning and improving yourself. So thank you, Prabhu. And in this case, it's not only just the material skills, so to say. These are the devotional practices, the wonderful quality that Ambrish Maharaj had. He wanted all of his praja to have the same qualities. Thank you very much for this wonderful thing. One thing I want to point out, and we do not want to be criticized as GBC College violating the norms of a Bhagavatam class. My training is that whenever there is no purport given, we go to the verse that has a purport by Srila Prabhupada, then we read that purport. You have amply read Prabhupada's purports from various things, but just to kind of keep the tradition of Bhagavatam class, if you please go to text 17, which has Prabhupada's purport. Please read that verse and the purport for the benefit of all of us. Thank you, Prabhu.
Did you say 17, Prabhu? It's 15 and 16. Is that the one you refer, Prabhu? Sri Sukavacha Ambarisho Mahabhagaha Shaptadvipavatim Mahim Avyayam cha Shriyam Labdva Vibhavam Chatulam Bhuvi Meni Ati Dhurlabam Pungsam Sarvam Tat Swapna Sangstutam Vidvan Vibhava Nirvanang Tamo Vishati Yat Puman. Translation: Sukadev Goswami said, Maharaj Ambarisha, the most fortunate personality, achieved the rule of the entire world, consisting of 7 islands and achieving inexhaustible, unlimited opulence and prosperity on earth. Although such a position is rarely obtained, Maharaj Ambarish did not care for it at all, for he knew very well that all such opulence is material, like that which is imagined in a dream. Such opulence will ultimately be destroyed. The king knew that any non-devotee who attains such opulence merges increasingly into material nature's mode of darkness. Purport: for a devotee, material opulence is insignificant, whereas for a non-devotee, material opulence is the cause of increasing bondage. For a devotee knows that anything material is temporary, whereas a non-devotee regards the temporary so-called happiness as everything and forgets the path of self-realization. Thus, for the non-devotee, material opulence is a disqualification for spiritual advancement. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki. I'm sorry for not following that etiquette, as I just wanted to describe the entire chapter, but I think it's important that we follow that etiquette. Yeah.
You did an excellent job, Prabhu, and thank you for keeping the Maryada of Bhagavatam class. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. वाञ्छा कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की, ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की, श्रील प्रभुपाद की, ताई गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल।